The LG C2 OLED TV is all new for 2022 with a new design, a next-gen OLED panel, and an updated chipset. But with almost a $1,000 difference between the price of the C1 and C2 OLEDs, the question is, should you actually get the C2 or should you just save some money and get the C1 instead? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we're going to help you decide. Stick around. Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and lover of all things tech, and in this video we'll be comparing LG's 2022 C2 Evo OLED TV to their 2021 model, the C1, to see if it's actually worth the price or if you should just save some money and get last year's model instead and get some nice audio equipment to go along with it. The TV now has a more modern design with thinner bezels and a more narrow stand, which raises the TV about 3 inches off the surface it's sitting on. So now you can add, say, a soundbar if you like to go that route to enhance your sound experience. And if you want to know more about how the C2 compares to the other 2022 model TVs like the QD-OLEDs from Samsung and Sony, as well as the QLEDs, then you should definitely subscribe because I'll be doing those comparisons as well. I'll also be comparing the C2 to some of last year's model, not only the C1 like in this video, but also Sony's A90J, which was the top performing TV of 2021, and maybe even comparing it to the G1 if enough people want to see that. But enough talking, let's get into it. We'll start the comparison using brighter scenes to see how both TVs handle scenes with a high average picture level. Using that, we'll be able to see just how much of a brightness advantage the C2 holds over the C1. Both TVs will be set to their most accurate picture profile, which is the cinema preset. Their brightness will be set to their maximum, and image sharpening and motion enhancement will be disabled. Because of the way the camera interprets the different brightness levels of both TVs, the brighter colors will appear lighter than their darker counterparts. At some points, the brightness of the image being displayed will exceed the dynamic range of the camera, and in those instances, the image may appear washed out in certain sections of specular highlights. That is not the case in person. The camera just fails to capture all that highlight detail. And as we look at objects such as the sky and specular highlights in things like trees and the balloons, we can see that the C2 is most certainly brighter. Now let's compare them even closer. On full display here is the picture quality and characteristics we've come to expect from an OLED TV. Things like punchy contrast and high saturation. And this trend certainly continues with the C2 OLED Evo. Both TVs have similar color characteristics and the saturation is similar between both, but I think the C2 has a bit of a better contrast representation because of the higher brightness in some scenes. That isn't always the case though. In some scenes where the C2 is noticeably brighter than the C1, the colors on the C2 will look lighter than they are on the C1, and that's a limitation of how the camera captures the difference in brightness between TVs. Now let's look at some darker scenes to see if there's any difference in how each TV handles scenes with near black detail. In my initial impressions, I mentioned that I thought the C2 may handle near black detail better than the C1 does, but I don't think that's actually the case. What I think is happening is that in some scenes, because of the overall brightness increase of the C2, the entire scene benefits from the increased brightness, and so objects which were darker on the C1 are now just a bit lighter on the C2. For example, look at the shadows in the bottom left corner of this image. Specular highlights is one particular thing that certainly benefits from the increased brightness output of the C2 OLED. They appear brighter and more realistic when you compare the two TVs. Now TVs with the OLED EX panels from LG Display, which is the company that makes the OLED panels, it's a separate company from LG Electronics, mind you. Now TVs with these panels benefit from a custom algorithm that LG Display has implemented where it analyzes the scene being displayed and boosts the brightness if certain criteria are met. Now what those criteria are and how often that happens, no one can say really. Now the C2 is for a fact brighter than the C1. That's actually the first thing I noticed when I saw the TV in person, just how much noticeably brighter it was than the picture I was used to seeing on the previous LG OLED TVs. As of March 2022 making this video, there's about a $900 difference in the prices of both TVs, and I don't think there's a $900 difference in the brightness between both TVs, but that's not the whole story. The C2 has the newer OLED Evo panels, which is more resistant to image retention and burn-in, and those are two different things. Now, burn-in is permanent, while image retention happens when there's a after image of a bright object on the screen which fades over the course of time being typically a few seconds. But right now, if I had to buy any of these two TVs, I would actually get the C1 because it has most of the performance of the C2, and then I would use the money I saved on that to say get some better or additional audio equipment, because the audio can sometimes be even more important than the video. But that's just me. If you're going to be using a soundbar though, then your better option would be the C2, because that TV with the new stand design is raised about 3 inches off the surface that it's sitting on, as opposed to the C1, which pretty much sits flush because of the lower stand design on that TV. But let me know which of these two TVs you would get in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for my other comparisons and more in-depth coverage of the C2, because we are not done. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood Villa Man saying be safe and peace.